Welcome to Byte-Sized Tech. All right, today we are diving deep into what has to be one of the most common and honestly confusing tech purchases out there, buying a new TV. You know how it is. The market is just flooded with acronyms, competing features, and all these big promises. So our goal in this explainer is to cut through all that noise and give you the essential info you need to make a really smart choice. Okay, let's get right into it.
We're going to tackle a bunch of common questions, but let's kick things off with the one that seems to be on everyone's mind. And it's a great hook for our whole discussion today. With all this amazing new tech, why is the big push all about making TVs brighter and brighter and brighter? It sounds simple, right? But the answer touches on everything from your living room setup to the future of HDR content. So, to get to the bottom of it all, here's our game plan. First, we'll talk about the practical stuff. What to do with your old TV. Then, we're going to explore the whole sustainability question around OLEDs. After that, we'll jump head first into that big brightness debate. And finally, we'll figure out if picking a smaller screen means you're actually missing out on important features. Okay, first things first. Before you can even think about unboxing that shiny new screen, you got to figure out what to do with the old one.
It's a question we all face, isn't it? It just feels so wasteful to throw it out, but, finding a new home for a big, bulky piece of tech can be a real pain. And hey, with prices for everything going up, getting a little bit of cash back for your new purchase is always a nice bonus.
So you've basically got 4 paths, and each one has its pros and cons. Trade-in programs are often the easiest, no fuss, but you probably won't get top dollar. Selling it yourself on a site like Facebook Marketplace, that's where you'll get the most cash, but you'll have to put up with lowball offers and trying to coordinate pickups. A fantastic option, honestly, is a local buy-nothing group. You can easily find someone right in your community who would be thrilled to have it. And last but not least, if it's broken, responsible recycling is the only way to go. Lots of manufacturers and local services can help you out with that.
Okay, old TV is sorted. Now let's talk about the new one. And let's start with sustainability. Are these new OLEDs actually green tech, or are they secret power hogs?
This is such a great question from a viewer who's thinking about upgrading. Because on the one hand, OLED technology has this potential to be incredibly efficient, but on the other, it can also use way more power than other TVs. So, how can both of those things be true? Well, it all comes down to how these things actually work.
So unlike your standard LED TV that has a big backlight shining through all the pixels, on an OLED screen, every single tiny pixel makes its own light. This is the magic behind those perfect inky blacks that everyone raves about. When a pixel needs to be black, it just shuts off completely. No light bleed, nothing.
And this, right here, perfectly explains that efficiency paradox. If you're watching a dark, moody movie, huge parts of the screen have their pixels literally turned off, sipping very little power. But the second you switch over to, say, a hockey game with that bright white ice rink, every single one of those millions of pixels is firing on all cylinders, and the power usage just skyrockets.
So, the takeaway here is that an OLED's efficiency isn't a fixed number. It really depends on what you're watching, how high you crank the brightness, the actual size of the screen, and whether or not you use those built-in energy-saving modes, which, by the way, are often turned on by default.
So if being energy efficient is your #1 priority, you might want to look at models that aren't built to be the absolute brightest. A perfect example is LG's B series of OLEDs. They're known for being really efficient, and that's precisely because they aren't the brightest panels you can buy. They're an amazing fit for a darker viewing room where you just don't need to fight a ton of sunlight.
And that is the perfect segue into our next section, which really gets to the heart of that question we started with. Let's dive into the great brightness debate.
I love this comment from Simon, a viewer, because it just perfectly captures one side of this whole argument. If you mostly watch TV in a dark, controlled room, a modern TV can feel almost blindingly bright, even on a really low setting. So why is the whole industry pushing for more?
Well, there are 3 main reasons. First, and this is the most obvious one, it's for people who watch in bright rooms. If you've got sunlight pouring through your windows, you need that extra power to keep the picture from looking all washed out. Second, even in a dark room, a brighter TV can help you see all the little details in really dark scenes without just making the whole picture look gray. But the biggest reason is for high dynamic range, or HDR.
See, those extra nits, that's just the measurement for brightness. That's what makes HDR highlights, like the sun or stars or an explosion, really pop off the screen with this lifelike intensity. Without enough brightness, those moments can look kind of flat. So at the end of the day, there is no single right answer here. The perfect brightness for you completely depends on your room and what you like to watch. All right, for our final section, let's talk about the last piece of the puzzle, size. And that little fear that if you choose a smaller screen, you might be missing out on something important.
This is a super common worry. You found the perfect TV model, but your space only really fits a 42 or 48-inch version. Is the TV you're getting truly the same as that big, flashy 65-inch one they have on display at the store? The answer, a little frustratingly, is it depends.
Now check this out, because this is a perfect real-world example. Let's take Samsung's S90F OLED. If you buy it in the popular 55, 65, or 77-inch sizes, you get their top-of-the-line QD OLED panel, which uses quantum dots for these incredibly pure colors. But if you go for the smaller 42 or 48-inch models, or even the giant 83-incher, you get a different kind of panel, a standard WRGB OLED. It's still an amazing picture, but it's fundamentally different technology under the hood.
And the screen itself isn't the only thing that might be different. Manufacturers could also change up the speaker setups, the kind of stand that comes in the box, or other little accessories, all between different sizes of the exact same TV model.
So the huge takeaway here is this. You absolutely cannot assume that a glowing review of a 65-inch TV applies 100% to the 48-inch version. Before you pull the trigger, do your homework on the specific size you plan to get. Go check out reviews from sites that actually test and point out these very differences.
And that brings us to the end. We've walked through all the key decisions, from what to do with your old tech to the modern dilemmas of efficiency, brightness, and size. It really all boils down to this one question. For you, in your home, which of these things matters most? Answering that is how you're going to find your perfect screen. If you enjoyed the episode, please like, comment, share, and subscribe.